Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And I'm already cracking up. Now, some of you guys may be wondering, what the hell are you cracking up about? It is summertime right now. It is damn hot. What the hell are you grinning for? Well, let me tell you guys why I'm grinning. The reason I'm grinning is this. You see, a few months ago, about a year or so ago, we started getting this comment on this channel, which was, you ain't got really nothing to say. All you're doing is reacting to what other people are saying. You're not really saying what you think. You're just a reaction channel. That's what we got, right? But now that it seems so many different media personalities are diving into the independent space, it seems like everyone is reacting to what everyone else is saying. Now, what am I talking about? In the past, normally what would happen is whenever you had these high-profile sports personalities out there, they would seldom talk about themselves. They would talk about athletes. They would talk about situations. They would talk about events, but they would rarely talk about themselves. But now that they've come into this independent space, you find them now producing entire shows based off of what other people said. And in some cases, it's not even based on what they said about them, because some people will try to use that as an out. Well, nah, they're only responding to what's being said about them, and that's not the case. So it's just funny because I guess we're all now reaction channels, it will seem like, right? The irony in that. I'm gonna leave that part out. I don't want to give too many things away. But anyway, that's what I've been noticing. Now, why am I bringing this up? Yesterday, Stephen A. Smith published a show on his podcast. And during his podcast, the first kind of like teaser kind of had the headline, "The New Undisputed," right? So I knew he was going to be discussing that. So I think they released a full show, and then subsequently they started releasing individual clips. So then I came across a clip. And in this clip, Stephen A. Smith was addressing some comments that Skip Bayless made when he was explaining how him and Richard Sherman got into that blow up on TV 10 plus years ago. And he was giving his side. And during his explanation, this was on his show, The New Undisputed, with Richard Sherman there, he was basically saying that, listen, ESPN was going through, or at least First Take, was going through a probationary period. And Stephen A. Smith was also seeking to have an afternoon show because he was working very hard and he was tired of waking up so early to come do the morning show. That's what he said. So what happened? Stephen A. Smith caught a whiff of that, and he then decided to produce a show. And in this show, he was basically setting Skip Bayless, checking him on the facts. Like, wait a minute. Yes, that was an element of why we were under probation, but it wasn't just that. So as I listened to him, he basically went on to say that there are other reasons why we were also on probation, and you played a major role in us being on probation during that period, and it was part of the reason why you could not go back at Richard Sherman the way you would have liked to. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Stephen A. Smith said. It's a little bit lengthy, but I want you guys to listen to it in its entirety. And then we're going to come back and give you guys our full thoughts on this. We'll take a listen to that there.
Skip Bayless told the truth. We were in dicey situations. No doubt about it. He did not lie to y'all. If you remember, I was considered a relatively controversial individual, and obviously I ruffled feathers from time to time, no doubt. There's a lot of mistakes that I made in my career, and there's no doubt about that. When I uttered, when I misspoke, speaking about the Ray Rice situation, and I didn't articulate my thoughts as cogently as I should have, I had an issue there. But I want to remind everybody, I wasn't the only reason. The part that Skip Bayless did not say is that although First Take had climbed the charts and was really establishing ourselves as the flagship show of the network as opposed to Sports Center, where we were en route to doing that, the part that Skip Bayless left out was the fact that the bosses at the time didn't care. They had remembered that Skip Bayless lived off of talking about Tim Tebow every day before I arrived. They had accused Skip Bayless, meaning the public, of being a caricature of himself. And even though Skip was incredibly proud of his Tim Tebow coverage and what was peeled from it, the bosses weren't necessarily enamored with it. Skip Bayless was incredibly proud of his coverage of Tim Tebow. The bosses felt otherwise. And so that's the part he left out. I wasn't the only reason that probationary period per se existed. It existed because the network wanted to make sure that our show wasn't one that just generated ratings, but one that didn't cause them embarrassment and shame. Now, I didn't want to talk about Tebow every day, and I damn sure wasn't going for it, and it stopped when I arrived. But to be clear and fair to Skip, it did elevate the popularity of the show to some degree, even if people were critical of it. When they talked about Tim Tebow every day, although it got on folks' nerves, the bottom line is there were ratings that came from that. And Skip was very, very proud of that coverage. So it's not to throw shade on it from that. I'm just talking about what the bosses felt. The public might have been critical of it, might have minded, some might not have minded, but they still watched. But in the end, they weren't too happy with it. The bosses I'm talking about. That is where the probationary period came from too. So I thought Skip left that out.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. You heard what he had to say. Here are my thoughts on this. First of all, I was unaware of what was taking place within ESPN around that Tim Tebow saga. Now, I remember that Tim Tebow saga, and it was unlike anything you have seen. For the people that missed it, there's nothing that has happened in recent times with Skip Bayless like that Tim Tebow thing. I mean, he has the Tom Brady thing. He's had other few, he liked Ben Simmons. I think there were other few guys that he was a major fan of, and he was kind of on the outside looking in, but there was nothing like Tim Tebow. Because Tim Tebow was extremely polarizing. And Tim Tebow had this thing that annoyed a lot of NFL players and a lot of commentators, which was for the majority of a game, he would play horrendously. And then in the fourth quarter, he would hit some type of switch and he would pull off some type of miracle run and the Broncos would win games. And he ended up with his unorthodox style. He helped lead that team into the playoffs. And I think they ended up actually getting a playoff victory, which gave Skip Bayless even more ammunition. And during that period, Skip Bayless was taking on all challengers. He would insult you up and down if you even try to tell him that he did not know what he was talking about when it came to Tim Tebow. And trust me, a lot of analysts were frustrated at Skip Bayless during that Tim Tebow period. Now, what I was unaware of was the external backlash that the show may have been receiving, which is what Stephen A. Smith just revealed. Apparently, the network was afraid of them turning into a clown show by having Skip Bayless, one of their biggest stars, go out there every single day and sing the praises of Tim Tebow when everyone, well, almost everyone with the exception of Skip Bayless, had come to the conclusion that Tim Tebow wasn't a very good quarterback, that he could not throw the football, And they probably felt like they were losing some credibility when you had a guy like this on television. But Stephen A. Smith did say that it was also generating ratings. So again, it put ESPN in a catch-22. So I think when Stephen A. Smith heard the backstory that Skip Bayless said on the show, he's like, wait a minute now. We were on probation, but it wasn't just because of me. And full disclosure, I didn't even know that these shows couldn't go on probation, which goes to show you the power that these advertisers have on these networks. Because if you start doing things that's going to jeopardize your dollars or blemish the image of the sponsors that are associated with you, you're going to need to make some changes, right? Now, Stephen A. Smith, this isn't the first time that he's put out this type of message. As a matter of fact, what Stephen A. Smith just said about Skip Bayless in terms of setting the record straight was actually what Skip Bayless did about a year or so ago when Stephen A. Smith went on, I think it was The View or one of these shows, where he was talking about the inception of ESPN First Take, where he essentially said that, Skip Bayless came to him basically saying, I need your help because, we want to take the show to the next level. I need your help. And then Skip Bayless came out and said that was absolutely not how it played out. We were already doing great. And they had this big blow up. And apparently Stephen A. Smith actually went to Skip Bayless's house in Los Angeles where they talked it out. But it was a pretty big thing. And Skip Bayless was very, very upset with Stephen A. Smith. And he made his feelings publicly clear on his channel, on his podcast. So this isn't something new. I think Stephen A. Smith is doing exactly what Skip Bayless already did to him. So I'm going to be very, very interested to see if Skip Bayless is going to have a rebuttal to the comments that Stephen A. Smith just made, or if he's just still going to be too caught up in his new situation that he currently has there with FS1. So what I want to know from you guys, after hearing the information that Stephen A. Smith gave, do you think that it gives you more of a context as to why that situation ended up turning out the way it did with him and Richard Sherman on television? And number two, do you think that when Skip Bayless hears these comments that Stephen A. Smith made about him in terms of fact checking him, do you think Skip Bayless is going to respond to the series of events that Stephen A. Smith laid out? Yes or no? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.